today to show you how to do a proper truck inspection as per the Kleanza Consulting Limited policy. The first thing we have to do is check the motor oil. Step one for checking the motor oil is to open the hood. The hood release latch can be found in this vehicle right down here. Pop. After you release the hood, the second safety to prevent this from shaking around is located just under here. Now over to Greg to where to find the dipstick.
The dipstick is located directly below my finger. So once you've located the dipstick, you need to have something in the way of a cloth or napkin that you can check your oil with, and I recommend putting on a pair of gloves to protect your hands. Take a cloth in one hand and reach down and pull that dipstick up and straight towards you. And what you want to do is slide it through the cloth and remove any oil residue on it so that it's nice and clean. Have a look at the dipstick and you'll notice there's some markings. Usually it'll be a high and a low limit marking. You want your oil mark to be in somewhere in the middle. So once you've got it clean, you're going to put it back into the hole. Push it all the way in till it clicks. And slowly pull it out again. And this time you're going to bring it up and have a look at it. And you can sort of see this one, I've got very clean oil. You can sort of see that the oil mark is about there. So just at the high mark. So this is good oil. So when you're checking your oil, as well as your volume of oil, other things you want to look at is actually look at the oil itself. As you saw in this one, the oil was very clear. That means it's healthy engine, recent oil. That's really good. Oil on a diesel vehicle, this is a gas engine, diesel vehicle will often be very, very black, but it will still be nice and smooth. If your oil has any color to it, any blues, any hues, if it's got white or looks like it's milky in any way, immediately have the vehicle inspected by a mechanic. Those are all very bad signs. So the next thing on our list, now that we've checked our motor oil, is a coolant and antifreeze. So your coolant and antifreeze are essentially the same thing. The antifreeze goes in the coolant, and the coolant is what keeps your engine cool. All the liquid goes through this piece up here, this is called the radiator, and it goes from there into the engine and circulates back. Now you need to find the fill cap for the coolant in order to test your levels. In this truck, it's right here, this big jug over here. So the fill mark on this truck here is just down here, and ideally at cold temperatures. So when you start the truck in the morning, the liquid should be in between these two lines. The reason this is above the line right now is because we've been driving this truck for the last hour. As the engine warms up, it heats up the coolant, which then of course expands, and so that's why they have this extra volume in these tanks. If you ever see the coolant below the lower line, you need to top that up. And you can buy coolant at a gas station. While we've got the hood open, we're also going to check the washer fluid level, because this is also located under the hood. Go. So on this truck, the washer fluid is located over here, and it actually says washer fluid only on the cap. The only way to check this, unfortunately, is to actually open the cap and look in and see if you can see any washer fluid. Some vehicles will have a visual bubble on the side where you can see how high it is. This vehicle doesn't have that. If you can see washer fluid down there, then you've got enough washer fluid to keep you going on your trip. So a couple of things that aren't on the checklist that you should definitely look at while you've got the hood open, I'm going to go over those next. First off, the battery. Open your car, have a look at the battery. You want to make sure these terminals aren't dirty, they don't have any sort of crystalline growths or any whiteness on them. That makes sure that your battery and your vehicle are really charging well. Another thing you should always check is at the front of the engine here, and that's the serpentine belt. You can sort of see my finger pointing to it here. Reach your hand down, make sure you've got gloves on, and just test how tight that belt is. If you see any burrs, any breaks, any cracking in that belt, it needs to be replaced. Ideally, you want it to be nice and firm. The final thing I like to check under the hood of a vehicle is the radiator hoses. So these are the hoses that take the coolant from the radiator to the engine. This is one here, big one. And what I do is like to just squeeze it and make sure that the hose is flexible and that you can hear liquid moving around. One is at the top, check that one. And one is located at the bottom, down here underneath. So it'll be that large hose down there. Every vehicle, regardless of how it's set up, will have an entry point on the low end and an exit point on the high end of the radiator. So just find those two largish hoses and make sure they're nice and malleable. So now that we're done under the hood, we're going to move on to the next item, which is exhaust and mufflers. So the exhaust or muffler of your vehicle are actually two different pieces. This is your exhaust pipe, comes at the back, it can be on the left or right side depending on the make of vehicle. The actual muffler is a unit underneath the vehicle. It's a little bit harder to find, but ideally when you're checking all of these things, all you want to do is make sure that they're firmly attached, not rattling, and there aren't any large holes in them. Getting down beside your vehicle, you can look up underneath. This large metal tank-shaped structure is your muffler. Again, want to make sure it's nice and firmly attached to the vehicle and that there are no holes in the bottom of it or no obvious rust. So the next item is general body. So for your general body inspection, you want to basically do a 360 walk around the truck. You're looking for items like loose places in fenders, visible rust, scratches or dents, things like mud flaps that are hanging off the vehicle. These are integral to the safety of the vehicle. If they are not there, they need to be replaced. You also move up to the front, check things like your bumper, make sure that everything is square. If the vehicle's been in an accident, sometimes the bumper will be pushed up, and that means there could be structural problems underneath the vehicle. Make sure that all your headlights and your ticker lights are all clean and intact. It's good to open all of your doors. Make sure there's no squeaks or rattles or pinches. Again, those can indicate structural damage in the frame. You don't want to have any of that. The next item on our list is general mechanical. So general mechanical things that you should look at include the few things I added under the hood, thinking about those radiator hoses, the battery terminals. You also want to look at mechanical things underneath the vehicle. So if you come over here, we'll look underneath, we can see the springs at the back of the vehicle. You want to make sure that they're in line, that they're not broken or there's not pieces missing. You want to have a look at this piece here. This is a shock. It should be solid, firm, shouldn't rattle. You also want to have a look at any of the lines that you can see. These are brake lines. You want to make sure there's not any liquid coming out of them and they're not rusted or broken. So you move up to the front wheel here. You want to make sure that the fender is all clean, not too rusty. You want to look at all the cabling and the brake lines here, make sure that they're dry. And also, depending on the suspension at the front, you want to also make sure that that is also dry. Anytime you're seeing a lot of oil build up on any of these wheel wells, it likely means you've got a seal or a leak somewhere that should be inspected by a mechanic. So the next item we want to check is our mirrors. Checking your mirrors, ideally you should be sitting in the vehicle so you can see what you're looking at. You want to check that both of your side view mirrors are oriented so you can see well beside the vehicle, possibly just a little bit at the back of your vehicle. If your vehicle is equipped with convex mirrors, these little guys up in the top, you want to make sure they're oriented so they'll see anything in your blind spot. If your vehicle doesn't have a canopy and you're not towing a trailer, you also want to make sure that your rear view mirror is set up in an appropriate position and is visible. If you're towing a trailer or you have a canopy that you cannot see through, I recommend tilting this so that it's out of the way so you don't look at it. Drivers can look at that mirror when they've got something blocking it and they'll think there's nothing behind them, and that's really dangerous. It's better not to have that mirror so you don't confuse yourself. So the next thing on our list is tires and PSI. So the first thing you want to do is inspect your tires. Put your gloves on and run your hands over the inside and outside wall of the tire. What you're feeling for is any burrs, any bubbles, anything that might make the sidewall of the tire not safe. This tire is pretty good. The next thing you want to check is the tread of your tire. Have a look at the tread. Make sure that you can bury at least half of a finger in that tread. I think the requirements are 1/4 of an inch minimum, but on our meaty tires you'll usually have at least that. Another thing to always look at is make sure that the tread is wearing smoothly. You want to make sure one side of the tire isn't completely bald while there's tread on the other side. Another thing that can indicate a problem is if the rubber is pushed off, so there's little burrs coming off on one side. all of those mean there's something wrong with your suspension and it needs to be inspected. So during our inspection of this sidewall of this tire, I actually noticed there's a bit of a cut here. It's not down to metal, so it's not dangerous yet, but you probably should put this on the safety record to say, yeah, there is a bit of a mark in the sidewall. Looks like someone's bumped up on a curb or something. Once you are sure that your tires are in good shape, next thing you want to do is make sure that they're inflated to the right PSI. Every brand and style of tire has its own specific specifications, and they're usually listed here where it says max load. This one, you get down the end, it says 80 PSI cold. This is the total pressure of that tire when it's cold. That doesn't mean that's the pressure you want to inflate the tire to. That information is located on the driver's side door. So on this Ford F-150, our tire inflation pressure is actually located right here on the door. If it's not here on the vehicle you're using, check the user manual and that will tell you where to find your tire pressure information. This vehicle says that we should have 55 PSI on the front tires and 60 PSI on the rear tires. So let's go check that now. To test your tire pressure, you want a tire pressure gauge. Here are two varieties. A third type is a pen style thing that when you apply it to the nipple on the tire, the end pops out like this, and that'll tell you how much pressure you've got. So I'm going to use this digital air tire pressure gauge. You want to open your little tire pressure cap, hold it in your hand so you don't lose it, and apply your tire pressure gauge directly onto the nipple. You want to push it hard enough that you don't hear the air coming out. So what we're getting here, it says 51.5 pounds per square inch, PSI. So that's a little low for what this tire needs to be, so we'll have to take this and get it tuned up. The next thing on our list is windshield wipers and condition. If you want to check your windshield wipers, pull them off the windshield. Make sure that the blade is nice and flexible. If you're at a gas station, use the sponge to clean your windshield wiper blades. Check both sides. And also if you're driving an SUV or anything with a rear windshield wiper, check that one as well. They often get forgotten, and getting the mud off the back of your vehicle on a gravel road is very important. So the next thing on our list is lights. We're checking our headlights, our tail lights, our signal lights, and our brake lights. To do this, you really need an assistant. Get in the cab, turn your headlights on, ask your assistant to check if they're working. How are those lights working, Cody?
There we go. That's them on.
Perfect. When you're going through your lights, check your headlights, both sides, make sure the high beams and low beams are both working. Also check your daytime running lights. This means even when your lights are off on a modern vehicle, you should still have a small light coming from the front. Next, you want to check your indicator lights, left and right, both on the front and the back of the vehicle. Turn them on, turn them off. Also check your four-way flashers. Make sure that your indicator lights are off before you turn your four-way flashers on, because sometimes they use different bulbs. Finally, you want to take your backup and brake lights. For your backup lights, you actually have to put the vehicle in reverse. So make sure that you have your parking brake on and your foot on the brake. Put your vehicle in reverse. White lights will come on in the back of the vehicle. Have your assistant check that. And then also put it back in park and just tap the brake and make sure that the red lights are coming on in the back of the vehicle as well. Once you finish with the vehicle checklist, there's also a few other independent items that we really should check on every vehicle. These will differ depending on what project you're on, but some things that we need to check all the time include a fire extinguisher. Every vehicle must have a fire extinguisher in it, one that is a class A, B, and C. These are for 3 different types of fires. We can talk about that in another video. The fire extinguisher also must be attached to the vehicle. It can't be loose and flying around. If you were in an accident with a loose fire extinguisher, that could become a projectile and really harm someone. Other things that are really good to have in your vehicle, most likely these will be located in the cab, would include various recovery equipment, tug straps, tow straps, shovels. You want to have some sort of first aid kit, potentially a survival kit. Also flares, road warning signs, so if you do have to change a tire or you're broken down on the side of the road, something to give other drivers an indication that you are on the road and need to be avoided. Also things like a tire jack and wrench. These should be located behind the back seat in a pickup truck, or in an SUV they're often underneath the back tailgate, and they're what you'll need to get the spare tire off this vehicle and to replace a tire. Also things that are handy to have, jumper cables in case you run dead on the battery, and of course ropes so you can help pull yourself or another vehicle out of the rut. So it looks like this F-150 is ready to go. I hope the information we've just shared has been valuable to you, and I hope you've learned something from this video. Go out there, drive safe, and make sure your vehicle is safe too.
Da-na-na-na-na-na-na.